reinvigorate his mental fortitude as we get towards the end of this season.
Yeah, that's right. I think that it's been kind of something that a lot of players have pointed out at highest level, which is that it sometimes feels like when they line up their best days of gameplay, where they feel like they're technically on point, they're like really seeing all the lines, they don't feel like they're necessarily coming out with that W. And I think that's okay, because in the end, as much as Hearthstone is a game that has a lot of chance and there is variance to it, you also kind of have to, stick to your guns and just try to play as consistent as you possibly can, because that's, in the end, your best way to be a champion, right? Everyone comes out here into GM. They're really trying hard, and they're trying their best. And I think we can definitely take a moment to appreciate all the hustle that players like NoHandsGamer and Monsanto bring to the table. Both players very public about their practice and how their mindset is, which I always appreciate. Monsanto, has even posted about how he's practiced 60, 80 hours in a week before to try to prep for Grandmasters. So here we go. Game number 1, Druid versus that Rogue. And this Rogue is playing a secret package, which we've seen play pretty successfully all throughout the weekend. Most notably through Rogue's success has actually been the fact that Rogue's been banned a lot, which does seem to be a nod to how consistent this class can be.
Yeah, especially the aggressive variations. A lot of times lineups have to ban it because they have 2, sometimes even 3 bad matchups. The secret variant, maybe not as much, but it is kind of this weird deck that has this, snowball factor to it, causing some wins that can make it potent. One thing I do want to point out is Monsanto 3-kept. 3-kept Colt Neophyte, Prep, and Dirty Tricks. Colt Neophyte makes sense just because, it's against Druid. They have some very obvious power turns where they're going for either ramp with overgrowth on 4 or guardian animals on 7, and being able to interrupt that with Cold Neophyte seems like it makes a lot of sense. The Dirty Tricks as well, because they're always going to play spells early on in the game, always. Unless they're just going to sit there and wait until they get 5 mana and then play a beast. You're perfectly okay with that too, so I like that keep. The Prep, without much follow-up, I don't know, but he does have a lot of payoff cards in his deck for Prep. So if you draw Drew Questing or Edwin, then that could pay off in a big way. But nothing.
Well, for now, Colt Neophyte just strong enough to get things started.
Well, he could Lightning Bloom for 1 mana crystal here to be able to play one of these 5-drops, but he's not under too much pressure right now. Doesn't want to give Monsanto the card draw, so I'm just going to say, you know what? Take it, whatever. Ooh, okay. Couple options here. Could go Blackjack Stunner on the Cold Neophyte. Try and save that for another power turn. Gives up power on board. Gives up tempo to get disruption. I don't like that play too much because he can't fit in Wand Thief with it, because Cold Neophyte would cost 3 mana. The other one is just to go prep Wand Thief and then try and search for something.
Don't let the door
But it looks like, yeah, he is going to go for a little bit more disruption. Hey, you know what? If you're just going to keep passing, I'm just going to keep playing this Cold Neophyte.
Yeah, I can get behind it. I think that the idea is that you keep Druid starting slow, because they do have that early mana crystal advantage, and you want to try and make sure that by the longer they get delayed, the worse the impact will be, because if they get out guardian animals when it's on your turn 3 or 4, that's a lot harder to manage than on your turn 5 or 6. So I think the longer you can delay things, stop any potential ramp, stop any potential front-loaded ramp like a Innervate or some kind of combination of Lightning Bloom with guardian animals, like that kind of stuff is really hurtful to Druid getting their momentum going. And we do have Monsanto starting off with his preparation. He does have some combo cards that can generate other cards here. Did not find any way to deal immediately with the Twilight Runner, but does have the ability to use this Evil Miscreant to potentially do something really nice.
Yeah, polymorph for the future makes a lot of sense because of the big minions that the Druid will be playing at some point. He will be giving the card draw over, but the Titanic Lackey is actually pretty clutch here because it protects these minions. I don't know. Yes, it feels bad to waste the prep, but that 4 damage to face doesn't really feel super impactful right now. You may need that to clear through a minion or, push past for something crucial. So it does hold on to it. Unfortunately, waste the prep. Not fully wasted since it activated combo, but I'm not getting full value from it. No hands. This is kind of an annoying board. Not super powerful. But it is annoying. He doesn't have the guardian animals. And actually, one thing to note is the Titanic Lackey not as clutch as I thought it was because NoHandsGamer is playing a version of Malagos Druid without the leg pressures. The Titanic Lackey still protects these other minions from being just traded into with the Twilight Runner, but doesn't, have the full benefit of blocking leg pressure. But No Hands, the classic, play the Twilight Runner, then play a 9-mana Ysera Unleashed, and try and draw some portals immediately. Doesn't get any portals immediately. And Monsanto does have Polymorph to answer this 4/12. But he also has a lot of small stuff that he can use in order to play this Edwin Van Cleef, like Dirty Tricks, Blackjack Stunner, Edwin Van Cleef. He can even backstab his own minion, like his Titanic Lackey if he wants, to make that Edwin slightly larger. You're trading 1 power on board for the 2 additional power on the Edwin Van Cleef. I like that as well. He's overloaded next turn, and a 10-mana Ysera Unleash is pretty hard to play.
Yeah, I like that as well. And I think that Monsanto agrees. As I do think that this does lean towards him removing here. I still think that 4/12 isn't nearly as important as setting up this Edwin because you can use the Polymorph afterwards.
Yeah, I guess the bigger question there was Blackjack Stunner or ignore the 410? Oof.
Okay, I mean, this is tough,
clear.
But the swipe can clean up a lot of this, but you don't want to activate necessarily that secret and give him a ton of card draw here, right?
Yeah, but you also don't want to take 8 damage.
Right. I guess you don't really get to choose.
Yeah. So, go swipe, Moonfire, trade. He can do a Crystal Power to heal back up his Ysera Unleash since he'll have a clean board. Like you mentioned, we'll give Monsanto the card draw from the Dirty Tricks. But you just can't afford to leave this up. Like, if you just play Teacher's Pet, Blackjack Stunner, or any removal spell would heavily punish you because you take that 8 damage.
Okay.
Time waits for no one.
Moonfire, Crystal Power, these are still usable spells here. And I think No Hands really has to try to stabilize, make sure that Rogue can't run away with this one. But a lot of resources sunk in. Monsanto has another reload opportunity here. Shadow Step being picked up makes Questing Adventure pretty scary at this point.
Want Thief 2, quite valuable
I wonder.
for the Shadow Step. Pick up some burn, can pick up just some sheer value, card draw.
Give me a quest.
A lot of good mage spells. Problem is, if he wants to commit all this mana, he's not going to do it off Ysera Unleash, but I don't think that matters too much.
Right.
And he might be able to pick up a spell to deal with it. Ooh, Oh. Deep Freeze is probably the best all-arounder, but Apexis Blast with Eviscerate in hand
Choose soon.
could be could transition to some kind of burn plan. Yeah, goes for it. Apexis Blast it is. I mean, there's definitely a possibility here for a 2-turn lethal setup. If this Questing Adventurer sticks. Has 9 burn damage from hand.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense to me, right? You want to try to finish the game as best as you can, and being able to push out as much damage as possible versus Druid gives them almost no time to get set up. But this Guardian Animals finds the Twilight Runner and the Teacher's Pet, and so NoHandsGamer can use the Moonfire to kill off this Questing Adventurer here. Also might find a Dragon that is very useful.
The Secret Spread, Ambush, 2 Plagiarize, 2 Dirty Tricks, so this is check for a Dirty Trick, so it's more likely to be Plagiarized, but I don't think that was really a reasonable way to play around that. And Monsanto's not going to really be able to do anything with a Guardian Animals anyway. Well,
right,
I mean, he could pull his Sparrow Cats.
That's true. He can go ahead and try and utilize that, but at the same time, it does feel like Monsanto here is just trying to find the last bits of damage, and Druid just playing a straight-up controlled defensive style. Viscerate, Pexis Blast. Not enough mana right now, but that is a good amount of burst. 13 from hand at the moment. 14 to count the Moonfire.
Oh, I mean, he could polymorph this Teacher's Pet and then Dagger Face and Eviscerate.
Yep.
Set up for a 2-turn lethal, as long as there's not another taunt or healing. Because he still has that 14 damage from hand. Dagger would be 15 if No Hands all he did was armor up. Overflow picked up, but there's not really... I mean, I guess he could do it if he's worried about dying. Like, what does this turn from Monsanto tell you? You know 2 cards in the hand. Guardian Animals is pretty dead. Geppetto here, there's no beast left, so there's Force Warden Omu, there's Alexstrasza. Oh, picks up both of those. I think that was it, actually, because he actually doesn't run Speaker's Control.
Right, but now he can
those were guaranteed.
Play this Omu. So you want to use the Innervate or the Lightning Bloom here? I guess he really couldn't be killing anyways.
Time waits for no one.
So he's gonna go ahead and overflow afterwards. Did he need to? Did he need it, Alex, before playing overflow?
He would have overdrawn a card. He needed one more card to go.
Okay. His hand space.
Maybe that's. I mean, there's.
I mean, I don't think 15 versus 20 really matters against a board like this, really. And he finds a taunt off the evasive Draconid. Monsanto just concedes. And that's game number 1. Over to NoHandsGamer. There's too much power to really come back from. Really well done. And that's going to be the first game of this best of 5. The Druid just kind of got off to too quick of a start with all of their power ramp and hitting Ysera on the board and being able to stabilize. And you saw that Monsanto kind of tried to play the tempo line, but Druid just had enough pressure, had just enough removal to stop that damage. And had Monsanto dealt 5 more damage, maybe it wouldn't really matter if NoHandsGamer healed because he had that Apexis Blast and the double Eviscerate. So very tight one, but Druid able to survive and get through. And we talked about how Rogue might be like a good class to try and take down classes like Druid. So No Hand's probably really happy to escape with that one.
Yeah, kind of breathing a sigh of relief there at the end once he found the victory. But um, the Secret Rogue hasn't performing as well against Druid as some of the more aggressive rogues, but it Monsanto wasn't able to stick like anything big early. Like his Edward Van Cleef didn't even come down until turn 6 or 7, and no questing early on in the game. A lot of times the way you win that matchup is by like sheer disruption plus a threat early on. And Monsanto kept bouncing this cool neophyte, but he wasn't pushing enough damage to really make that that mana disruption worth it at the end of the day. So you kind of have to have both of those strategies working in order to consistently find wins. But NoHand's going to move on to this Pain Warrior. And Pain Warrior, I suppose this is a lineup that he could be pretty decent against. Expecting maybe, or hoping for maybe a little bit more aggression. Monsanto doesn't have an aggressive rogue. He doesn't have Soul Demon Hunter. He doesn't have like Zoo Warlock. He did have Druid, which is what NoHandsGamer is aiming for with the ban. Kind of have to ban it if you're playing Pain Warrior, just because the matchup is pretty bad. That's what you're building your lineup around. So Pain Warrior might not be as good against Monsanto's lineup as it has been, or as it would be against players that might have Zoo Warlock or Hunter or Demon Hunter or a more aggressive rogue. But I still think it's decently positioned.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think that this warrior in general has been this warrior as a class this weekend has really showed up relative to what I feel like some of the expectations that we've had. Just looking at how warriors performed going into this weekend, I just wasn't really sure about it. You mentioned it yesterday. You thought that Bomb Warrior was particularly unimpressive, and we'll see if that ends up being the case here going into game number 2. Do feel like the Enrage Warrior versus the Bomb Warrior is still very tight, though. We saw a lot of close matches last season. I still think that's very much the case here as well. Live Warrior Lance gets off the Corsair Cash. Kind of looking at the hands here, and I'm thinking about how Bomb Warrior being so reactive. Do you think it's a plus or a minus in this matchup at all, TJ? Like the fact that Bomb Warrior that Monsanto has is a lot more control tools and less like the ability to, try to play a lot more proactive or like try to get onto the board a little bit quicker or draw more cards with Battle Rage and Risky Skipper.
I like it better, honestly. We saw how, say, Killen navigated with his Pain Warrior, but he was playing a little bit more of a tempo-oriented list. He had the Terran Gorfiend, he had Serpent Eggs. He was able to kind of hit the ground running in the early game, whereas NoHandsGamer has not. So Monsanto has a lot of time, and there's only a couple of specific threats he has to worry about. If he gives NoHands too much time, though, and just has this handful of reactive stuff, NoHands can piece together the combo. He can just chipping away with weapon damage. Eventually, get the Cork Elite, Enrage, Shield of Honor, Bulletsworn Mercenary combo for burst from hand. Also has Grom Hellscream. So you do need to keep pressuring. You can't just stay reactive. But I do think that with this start from NoHands, Monsanto should be pretty happy. Like some of the worst situations you can get into is if your opponent plays like a Warmaw Challenger and then Enrage Shield of Honor's Bloodsworn Mercenary at the next turn, and you just take so much damage early game that you can never stabilize. That's what happened in Killen series the other day, but it's just not happening in this early game. So I like Monsanto's position from here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can get behind with that, and I think that Monsanto does have a pretty reasonable start here. No kind of real big threat coming onto the board just yet. As NoHands looking at the dragons he wants. I think the Brightwing seems like Alex Draw is a little bit too expensive and not impactful. Oh my goodness, Speaker Gidra. I mean, NoHandsGamer raises his eyebrows. This is definitely something that gets you thinking. What can you really do with Speaker Gidra and Bloodsworn Mercenary to try and win this matchup? I mean, it looks good.
It's just not. enough expensive spells. I don't know, but you could beef that thing up. That's interesting. It's probably one of the better ones that you get from Brightwing, I guess, because there's a lot of garbage legendaries that just have no business, uh, ever, having giving you an extra chance to win. But Speaker Gidra you could just try and stick it on the board, force removal out, because even if you just like, I guess you can't inner rage something it, because the inner rage would eat the spell burst. I don't know, maybe I'm being too hopeful about the card. It's just interesting.
Oh, it's definitely interesting. I'm with you there, DJ. And I think in particular, having Speaker Gidra as an opportunity to overwhelm the board and force your opponent to, sort of like miscount their removal options. I think a lot of times in these kinds of scenarios, you're thinking about, what can you really count for, right? When you're playing like all your removal cards, and then your opponent finally plays like one threat that they've been holding in their hand for a while. And the Speaker Gidra, incidentally, if you combo with the Bloodstone Mercenary, puts out 2 threats. And so that might end up tripping out Monsanto if the game ends up going long enough to be the case. I mean, chances are No Hands maybe just picks up on his Mage Scribe and just plays like a tempo style with a bunch of resources and drains Monsanto of all his removal. That's another way you can go about it. And Speaker Gidra doesn't have to do anything too crazy. It's just a reasonably sized minion with Wind Fury that challenges a lot of what Monsanto does. I feel like we're kind of heading towards that area as NoHandsGamer, contemplating if he wants the Warmaw Challenger. The other Warmaw Challenger.
The ultimate counter to the Warmaw Challenger itself.
Yes.
Cutting Class, good pickup. Another one.
Okay, well, Cutting Class into a Cutting Class seems a little bit too greedy here.
Yeah. Coerce, this Warmaw Challenger, while it's only a 1/8 now, has the potential to be something great. Like just a Rampage, Shield of Honor, Bloodstorm Mercenary, and you're in some trouble. 4/9 though, that's pretty good. Can't get the spell burst now, but I don't even know if you'd want it because warrior spells don't necessarily have good synergy with every deck that you play, and his hand is already full. Has another coerce for this. I wonder if it's going to be that, or there's also like Dr. Krastenov hit plus sword and board. That keeps you shuffling bombs. It keeps you attacking. Cutting Class also is 1 cheaper next turn. I actually kind of like that. I think you're taking some damage and not gaining anything back, but you get to hold on to Coerce. Cutting Class is cheaper next turn. And just being able to keep on attacking with Wrench Caliber actually, I think, has a lot of merit because it forces No Hands to have to maybe respect bombs a little bit more. I guess not. Just going to coerce it, get that out of the way while he can. These are some of the expensive cards. He still gains life.
Yeah, I think that in the end, it's kind of what you were talking about, which is life gain. I think that one thing to consider in this matchup still is how much burst that can really come out towards the late stages of the game, just because of that one core Chronoly or that one Grommash that can come out of nowhere and sneak up on you. So I'm a fan of it. I think No Hands is very dangerous with how much cards he's been able to just kind of amass in his hand, and you're just really not sure what type of combination that come out here if you're not protective of your life total. Plus, after Dr. Krasnov dying feels a lot worse, right? Because then you're not able to potentially have it stick on the board or have it trade 2 for 1. It feels like there's better opportunities. But I mean, this is also going to be a little bit scary here for Monsanto. You just see how many bombs are going to be coming out here as well as damage to the face. So it does seem like No Hands has caught on to the idea that Monsanto really wants to try to be conservative with his life total. And he does not have access to AoE right now. All of them are a little bit off. Not enough mana for Deathwing. No Galakron for the Kronks. Whew. Nothing. Oh, well, Molten Breath actually does work.
It
Because he is
does.
holding Deathwing.
But is it a 4 mana to kill something small and gain 5 armor? Not sure if that has a lot of merit.
What now?
The big limitation for him here is mana. I guess he does pick Molten Breath. I mean, even if he's not using it this turn, it still might be beneficial in the coming turns.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, you know, I think a lot of the time you're like regularly thinking about whether or not you're able to turn the tides in this matchup, because it does seem like No Hands will be the one presenting board threats constantly. So even if it's not playable right now, I do think later on it might be important just to remove things where it could be a very nice lineup. So this makes sense to me. 4 Boombots.
Yikes. So he really did not want those Bomb Wranglers to be buffed up in any capacity, which does make sense. But he honestly just feels like he's been playing
I wonder.
like pretty slowly. I don't know if he could have played faster. Maybe that's just the matchup, right? Maybe the Pain Warrior just does things too quickly for Bomb Warrior to be able to catch up, and the chip damage is starting to add up. But NoHandsGamer can really make a pretty decent push here. He can go like Speaker Gidra. I guess he can't do that. Well, he can still do it. He can go Speaker Gidra like Rampage on the Bloodsworn Mercenary, push a bunch of damage, and still be able to kill off this Warmaw Challenger without having to use damage on board. Anytime you can push base damage with these Boombots and just know that they're going to explode at some point and be able to deal damage again, this feels good.
Ooh. Well, Monsanto can rest easy a little bit because that 4 damage went to the Warmaw Challenger. Now his face, Livewire Lance, pushing a little bit extra damage, getting that lackey. No Hands really not letting up at all, keeping up his momentum. Deathwing does clear the board. It does potentially kill him.
Yeah.
Man, this is not a great spot for Monsanto to be in. No Hands was really set up a deadly board from multiple angles here.
The play that jumped out to me first was shield block Dr. Krasnov into the Bloodsworn Mercenary and then attack the Gidra.
What now?
You go up to, you're at 13, so you die to like Grom Inner Rage, but I feel like if that's in hand, you're gonna die anyway. It takes off both damage meter from the board, it isolates Boombots with no minions, and you also have a pretty big burst of armor. Oh, okay. Well, Shield Slam makes it. I still want to keep attacking though. Like,
all right, just hit that. Sounds good.
I still want to keep attacking though. Like he hasn't attacked with his Wrench Caliber in a long time. And I get that he's waiting for an upgrade, but like he's not progressing his own win condition whatsoever. He's just trying to stop No Hands. And I don't think that's necessarily how you win, because you're still taking chip damage. We'll see. I mean, it could work out. It's just Dr. Krasnov's very expensive. That seemed like a reasonable turn. You just have to. You're basically dodging Grom Inner Rage for 1 turn. He would have died if he went with that play, because he would have been at 13, and there would have been 5 power and play plus Grom Inner Rage from hand. But
right. I know what you mean, though. It does feel like No Hands is still very much in the driver's seat, and Monsanto still has to figure out how he ultimately wins this game. It's not about really stalling at this point. And No Hands has even more ammo with that Onyxia pickup at the moment. Just so much more stuff that gets him dead. I do wonder about this Deathwing, though, if it ends up being like a potential saving grace, if it attacks everything and the Boombots all do minimal damage. I think Monsanto here is going to go for it.
yeah, I feel like with Grom Inner Rage in hand on No Hand's side, Monsanto's very likely dead here. 3 boom bots is definitely going to be a 2 health. So he just needs a little bit of... Whoa! He's dead.
Oh, exactly. To Grom in a rage. Is there a bomb out, though?
No, he hasn't been swinging. He has 1 bomb in the deck.
Jeez.
That
Definitely
Wrench
does
Caliber
not-
hasn't swung in 6 turns? 5 turns?
Yeah. I was about to say that this doesn't seem like the kind of scenario where Monsanto feels safe at all, and NoHandsGamer crushes his way to a Game 2 victory. 2 quick games start things off here Sunday for week number 5. It does seem like Monsanto's a little bit struggling here. Just not necessarily like, again, I don't feel like his plays are anything suspect, but it's just more that No Hands is like executing a very good game plan, and it doesn't seem like Monsanto's hands and plays are able to crack, No Hands. Whether Monsanto's in the driver's seat, he was not able to put enough damage, and then when he's put on the defensive end, even though he has a deck that's better at removal than traditional Bomb Warrior, it felt like he just got overwhelmed by sheer pressure.
Yeah. To be fair though, there were like 4 turns in that game that I would have played differently than Monsanto would have played. I don't know if there would have been a different outcome. But there were a lot of plays that I disagreed with. Especially towards like the end where he wasn't trying to get more attacks in. It didn't seem like he wanted to take risks. He was making the safe play every turn, instead of like playing slightly more aggressive and giving himself outs to try and win the game. Because at that point, even if he stabilizes, he still has a long time before he actually has like a win condition of his own that's not attrition. And maybe that plan works out worse. Like the plan that I wanted would have died to Grom in a rage on 8. But I think sometimes you have to take those risks and hope they don't have it, because just kind of waiting to die is worse in some situations than being proactive. But that's a discussion for a later time, I suppose, as Monsanto's now down 2-0 and has to beat the sole Demon Hunter 3 times in a row, and he has 3 bad matchups.
Yeah, Control Priest versus the Demon Hunter, not great unless you have weapon removal in the Priest, and he doesn't have anything. Well, Druid with Malygos, that kind of stuff is, that's really tough as well. And if you look at kind of how the way things go here with Monsanto, it's going to be tricky. No matter what he did in this series, because it does seem like NoHandsGamer was better versus Priest than the average lineup here. And so Monsanto has to beat Demon Hunter 3 times. His Rogue, his Warrior, and his Priest. Because I was worried about Priest going into this. And now NoHandsGamer seems like he is going to be in a position to sweep here. But, Monsanto does have a pretty decent curve. He's got the Wand Maker. Coining out the Sethek Veilweaver is a little bit interesting. I know a lot of priests love saving that card. What's the advantage of coining it out there, TJ?
Well, it's just tempo, right? Because he doesn't have anything to capitalize on it. It's just to start getting pressure under and forcing the Demon Hunter to use resources a little bit different. If you can get out of Twin Slice early, that's Twin Slice that's not going to your face later, right? A lot of times you're not going to really have mana to be playing the Sethek Veilweaver, and it does have the upside of, well, if he doesn't have the removal for it, then you can really capitalize on it and get some value from it. But I feel like this matchup from the Priest perspective is you just kind of need to get ahead of the Demon Hunter. If you're playing reactive the whole game, I mean, they're removing your stuff and dealing damage. And if you're the Priest and you're playing reactive, all you're doing is removing their stuff. And you don't have time to like heal and kill their 5/5s and worry about damage from hand. So just getting ahead. This is a little awkward though.
Yeah, not really getting ahead right now. Monsanto has to kind of think about if he wants to commit any of these resources for tempo. Like he could play Wild Pyromancer and the Embalming Ritual. Doesn't feel great. but it would give him board, and it does give no hands a couple of headaches to clear the board. So I'm okay with this play. I'm not loving it, but you can clearly see how Monsanto prioritizes trying to get the early game board control, which I completely sympathize with. I think this is the key for his victory, even if it looks a little ugly.
Yeah. No Hands has pretty good hand to start fighting. This Wild Pyromancer, if I'm No Hands, I'm not too worried about it. He has Marl Slicer, he has Blade Dance and Shard Shatter. He's got ways to deal with it, so I wouldn't be surprised to just see him equip this Marl Slicer and attack face here, or equip the Marl Slicer and do nothing. Because let's say Apotheosis comes out, this is like an Apotheosis check, completely negates the damage that's done. He also has, again, like I mentioned, multiple things that require having a weapon equipped, like Blade Dance and Gladebound Adept. So if he wants to kind of stack those things 2 turns in a row, it's beneficial to have both charges of the weapon still available. So Blaze.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think the weapon charges here is going to be kind of important for No Hands to manage. At the same time, leaving up this Wild Pyromancer does seem kind of threatening. It's not exactly obvious how to deal with this right now. Or if you deal with it at all, Maybe just let your opponent have this Wild Pyromancer, and then you use Shard Shatter Mystic to help clean things up afterwards. You can also just play Gladebound Adept, just try to be mana efficient. Forget trying to win the board with the Gladebound Adept and hit base, just pressure. Not to mention that Gladebound gets worse as the game goes on as a minion to deal damage, because Priest has either removal or ways to steal it with the Cabal Acolyte and the Wave of Apathy like Monsanto does right now. And the good thing about the way No Hands has mapped this out was that if his opponent did go for a Cabal Acolyte and Wave of Apathy, he would be able to clear it.
Yeah.
And he still can with the Shard Shatter.
Yep. Oh, nope.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
He drew
never
both
mind.
of his soul fragments. What in the world?
He would have to Spirit Jailer first, which is really inconvenient given that he would love to stick that.
Yeah.
Can also Blade Dance here. It's entirely plausible because then he can just push and just play another Marrow Slicer. I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much damage lined up, right? Another Wild Pyromancer. And what's awkward about this is Monsanto really wants to target this Renew at the base, but if he does, it just kills off Pyro. He can hold on to burst, but burst healing, but doesn't even find any healing from the Cobalt Spellkin. No Radiance, no second Renew. I feel like this game's just gonna end really soon. No Hands has so much damage over the next 2 turns. Another Twin Slice. Yeah, Monsanto's dead.
Yeah.
He's got
There's
6,
so much
9
damage. How do you stop this?
damage from hand, plus the 7 that he could deal this turn, even more that he could deal this turn. Doesn't include damage off the top. You probably just Shard Shatter Mystic here, a hero power, maybe unload the second slice. I don't even know if that's necessary. He could even go Spirit Jailer hero power after the Shard Shatter Mystic, because he still has enough mana to play all of the damage from his hand next turn. And they can keep it as a surprise. Maybe Monsanto won't expect as much, but pushes 7 this turn, and then 6, 9 from hand plus 4, 5. What, 14 damage?
It's a lot. And Monsanto has to find a way to stall it in any way he can. He goes for the Renew.
So Cabal Acolyte Embalming Ritual. You can actually go Cabal Acolyte, Holy Smite, the Shard Shatter Mystic, and then Embalming Ritual, the Cabal Acolyte. He'd have 2 waves of taunts.
Okay.
He'd also steal the Spear Jailer and have the 3/2 on board.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then hope that he picks up some healing.
Your mind is not your own. Dance, puppet, dance.
All right.
This is as good as it gets, really. But I mean, No Hand still has the way to get past it, and I mean, Kane Sun Fury and all the slices, 3, 7.
He's dead.
9, 11, 13. I mean, he's dead. Like, there's no way to stop it. The Lapidary was like a nice little icing on the cake. 3-0. No Hands is going to be able to go through and sweep Monsanto in a very quick first best of 5 and improve his record to 3-1. And, you know, sometimes you got the goods. And it feels like today, NoHandsGamer was not going to be stopped. I know that there's a couple of different lines in terms of what you think Monsanto was trying to go for in the macro game plan. But overall, it just felt like one of these days where No Hands was just not going to be stopped. Played solid, brought good decks, made good plays. And that's a recipe for success if you get really lucky as well.
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier, he's been playing some lights out Hearthstone. And, you know, sometimes you get a little help. But if you keep playing consistently, you're going to be rewarded. And that's feel like that's what's happening with No Hands. Monsanto 2-2 score, not bad, middle of the pack, and middle of the pack in Division A, which is still a pretty solid place to be. So shouldn't be too upset, but I did feel like maybe a small lineup victory for No Hands as well. Felt like his Demon Hunter had a lot of good